We get emails and comments all the time about what we do for legs. I'm gonna show you 3 methods for building powerful legs. So don't do another squat, deadlift, or lunge until you watch this entire video. And don't mistake videos for instruction, okay? Now, a common problem is that people are so used to seeing the unproportional weightlifters with skinny legs and huge upper bodies that they mistake proportional athletes for weak or skinny. Professional athletics is replete with skinny fighters with chicken legs who are world champions, super swimmers. Even powerlifters and Olympic lifters can be thin depending on weight class. In addition, weights only make a person strong in certain ranges of motion for pushing or pulling over a long period of time. Think about it like this. When a person lifts heavy weights and they're maxing out, it's a very long, slow lift, 5, 10, even 15 seconds or more for one rep. It's slow motion. It's almost like isometrics. It's so slow. But imagine kicking a heavy bag full blast. The impact could be 500 plus pounds of force for every kick. Imagine that in a 60-second round. That's 500 pounds times one kick every 2 seconds for 30 kicks, equaling 15,000 pounds of force the body is dealing with versus a single 500-pound squat that takes 15 seconds and a 5-minute rest. The shock is spread across the body and the person massively stronger, more athletic, and more powerful than a person who can do a 500-pound squat. I'm not taking anything away from a heavy lifter though. I understand the role of heavy squatting and being under a lot of weight, which has an impact on the central nervous system and a variety of other factors, hormones, etc., etc., etc. And things like that can be used strategically when it's called for. So don't misinterpret me, okay? It's just a very different thing altogether. I've done the 2 times body weight squats and 2.5 times body weight deadlifts, and I've done body weight in martial arts as well. So personally, I know the difference. And I'd be remiss to overlook the single leg lunges and the single leg squat. And those you can also do with a weight vest on to add weight. And you can turn the box jumps into single leg box jumps. Impacts from tumbling can be in the 2,000-pound range every time you strike the floor. Heavy bag work with thunderous kicks or exposing the body to 500 plus pounds of force repetitively. Move 1, rebounding. This can be as simple as punches off the ground. Totally locked legs. As much as you bend your knees, you're actually reducing power. It's a totally different kind of training. Elastic strength response. This is where the Achilles will send a signal warp speed to the brain to contract so it doesn't rip as it's stretched. You condition the legs through repetitive striking. Will it build muscle? Not in the way you think. Probably not even noticeable. You can do these on one leg as well, and once you understand the principle, the sky is the limit. You can then start going for height. It progresses very rapidly to exponentially higher forces that you have to be extremely careful with, so don't get hurt. Get someone who understands this stuff to help you. But the next level would be depth jumps. Not box jumps going upwards, but jumps going downwards with straight legs, destroying the floor every impact. This will be like 2 to 3 times body weight or more every jump. I've gone as high as perched on a 7-foot ledge in a squat to a straight leg impact on hard ground for a rebound of about 2 inches. They're brutal and will regularly have students do singles down after tumbling up onto a stack of mats 4 or 5 feet high. This is what I mean by holistic training. This kind of leg conditioning in reality conditions the entire body because it's constantly dealing with these impacts at very high forces. And then people wonder where all this strength comes from. But you have the secret weapon. It's how we're able to flip so high, like Ben doing all these incredible flips, or Clayton, or Alex. It's about conditioning the legs along with the rest of the body and especially the core. Your body literally has to be strong or else it will snap because the forces are so great. I've regularly seen many quote-unquote fitness people who lift weights or this and that, and they have literally snapped because their body couldn't handle the forces. Think about the fighting analogy again. Imagine a person on the receiving end of a 500 plus pound kick. They'll crumple if untrained. Their body working as a unit simply can't handle the forces or doesn't know how to frame against the impact. And even still, the conditioning is necessary to brace the frame. When you tumble or do even basic rebound training, you're purposefully applying these forces to yourself. But now you have the secret weapon. And subscribe, yes, but also opt in to get access to me and my team, PDFs, free content, student stories, and even secret events worldwide. And just in case YouTube ever vanishes into thin air, you can stay connected and not miss any of the trainings all of our top students receive. Move number 2, mobility. This is all the weird stuff. W-sits, Stalder pulses, leg lifts, all the stuff people will see and say, meh, I'm gonna go squat. Now listen, I've never said in any any of my videos that any mainstream exercise is bad. Not squats, not push-ups, not even deadlifts. I always say those things are valuable given certain caveats, and then share the methods for holistic training that result in sustainability and athletic power. The only thing I really caution against is the deadlift, but by all means, train however you want. An easy way to understand the complexity is like a big behemoth versus an ironclad dragon. A big behemoth is big and strong. It has its purpose. The strength that I often discuss is the attempt to build the ironclad dragon, on the other hand. Imagine each joint, tendon, ligament, and muscle is tightly lined with carbon fiber scales woven together to create a mesh of strength. I do know how to build bulk, 5 to 15 rep ranges for 3 to 5 sets of big compound lifts. I did all that really heavy back in 1999 through 2007, but it forgets about all the fine motor, extremely nuanced strength that end up becoming your weakest link and causing catastrophic injury. Here, try this as an example. Seated pulses. You can do any kind of angle you want, and they'll become more difficult depending on how you position yourself, which affects the angle and leverage. But try 50 pulses non-stop. This would be for hip at all angles, but also requires core and flexibility. Again, building as a unit. This eventually transfers over into 540 kicks, aerials, corks, and if you get to that level, then you're dealing with landings, which again is hundreds of pounds of force, and sometimes landing on a single leg. Are you starting to get why I approach the videos this way? I know it sometimes upsets people, but if folks are willing to see a little past what's the mainstream, then we can open up new doors to something pretty incredible. But fair warning, this is not easy. It's extremely difficult. These are not just numbers. There are huge impacts on the body, and the mobility preparation and conditioning is no joke. Ask any one of our students about the warm-up or the conditioning. By the way, thanks for all the comments and the super thanks. And thanks for being part of the community. You guys are awesome. But please train proper and get good guidance. Move 3, static and reps. People hate this aspect of training. It isn't glamorous. You don't get to brag about numbers or forces or anything from the above. When we're training leg conditioning, this is actually where you start. Horse stance is a common example I use in videos because it's easy to describe, but it's not easy to execute. And we'll take several minutes just picking on details until the whole group gets it right, and then we freeze for 10 seconds. We do the same thing with lunges. Hollow core, arms on your ears, etc., etc., etc. They'll be burning for minutes until everyone is picture perfect, and then hold for 5 seconds. There's also sitting in low squat as a stretch. There's just so much to it. I could talk about it for 30 minutes, but essentially we're training the body and brain simultaneously. So that's some of the static work, and then it transfers into reps. It's basically just taking the various stances we use and putting them under load. That's all weightlifting is too. This is where it's just brutally difficult and nothing to brag about. Squat jumps around the gym, partner squats, partner lunges down the length of the floor. We aren't measuring weights and plates and all that. It's just hardcore training. Honestly, sometimes when people get caught up in the numbers, it becomes an obsession and a major hindrance to progress and even life. Chasing numbers is a bad path to be on. Numbers are great. They're part of the immaterial, universal, logical aspect of the creation of this world, or perhaps even the creator himself, but they're not to be obsessed over. So we hit squat jumps around the gym. Or here's a really good example of a conditioning session at the end of a 3-hour training block. 50 box jumps to a rebound down, then 50 hollow back push-ups on the block, and then 50 V-ups on the block for legs and hips, and a 10-minute wall handstand. The box jump is just a narrow static horse stance made active with acceleration into the jump. And then of course the rebound down at the bottom is 2 to 3 times body weight. Then they did leg iron cross as part of the flexibility at the end. Needless to say, a couple students needed a rest day after that. So you see, the static shapes give rise to the reps. Standing is rebounding. Horse stance variations and lunges become traditional weightlifting maneuvers like squats and deadlifts, or they become explosive jumps and landings. Those jumps can also be reframed to downward jumps with bent legs, not rebounding and absorbing the shock. For example, a gainer off of a 6-foot block landing in a low squat. That's hundreds and hundreds of pounds of force. Even basic jump downs will generate 2 to 3 times body weight. But think about it for a second. This is what weights is actually trying to simulate. Some powerlifters will even rig up bands and lighter weight to develop explosive power. It's just the legs working under load. And now the big punchline. Sometimes I'll even prescribe weights for people if they need it. Not everybody does, but some people do. Often people will gravitate towards what they're good at though. And so a really good athlete, they might not want to do weights, but it might help them immensely. But that depends on their body type. Maybe they're an ectomorph and adding some muscle via squats would help out. Or maybe they're an endomorph and they'll very quickly add way too much muscle and fat and everything else us, and we need to condition completely differently. So it ultimately boils down, or should boil down, to skills-based goals for lifelong sustainability. Leg conditioning is not merely the ends and means, but a tool in the arsenal. And this is how we do it. Help our students gain massive mobility, strength, and superhero level skill to flip off walls, over obstacles, and tumble sky high. And it applies directly to martial arts and other athletics, to which I make application all the time. And there's a whole lot more. I'm sure I didn't cover everything in this video. See you in the next video and in training soon.